Welcome to A Veteran Story. And with me today is a hero, PFC Ken Kazanjian, United States Army.
Right.
Ken, welcome to A Veteran Story. I am in awe of your story, and can't wait to share this with our audience. Ken, to begin with, you were raised in Watertown.
Born in Cambridge and came to Watertown when I was a few months old and lived there until, a few years ago.
Well, your dad, Ken, your mother, Alice, and you had two sisters, one older, one younger, Joyce and Evelyn.
Yes.
And you spent happy days growing up in Watertown.
Oh, pleasant memories.
One of your close friends growing up was Paul Marsubian.
Yeah,
And we have a picture of you and Paul. And there was many friends that you shared your experiences with, and going to Watertown High School and graduating class of 1940.
40, right.
Somewhere along the line you were working, and on December 7th, 1941, do you remember where you were and what was the...
Yes, I had 4 buddies, and we had taken a ride out to visit some friends in Hudson, Mass. And it was the afternoon. We were sitting in the living room, and there was no television then, but the radio was on. And all of a sudden, one of the guys said, wait, listen to this. And they had described the bombing of Pearl Harbor. And we didn't think much about it. You know, I heard of Pearl Harbor. We didn't think much about it. But we were in the war. That threw us in the war, and within 6 months, all 5 of us were in different branches of the service.
Mm-hmm. You enlisted in the Signal Corps,
yes.
in the Army.
Yeah.
And you were learning it's communications, radio, and so you spent a fair amount of time learning your skills.
Exactly.
And after a certain period of time, you were aboard a troop ship.
Yes.
And bring us from the troop ship to what happened next.
Oh, well, I was a Signal Corps man at that time, and we were sent to England, I guess, to wait assignments. And we were there, maybe 3 months altogether. And during that time, I guess the infantry was taking a beating in Europe, right across the channel. So they decided to change all of our capabilities to the infantry. So we were no more Signal Corps men, we were put in the infantry. And, within a month, they decided to take us over to France. We were put on a boat, went there, and we were put on trucks. And some of the guys still thought that we were in the Signal Corps. So as we started driving into France more and more, all of a sudden we saw these dead cows. We went a few more miles, and we saw a few dead Germans.
This is November of 1944.
Yes, exactly. And I said, guys, we're in the infantry. And we were. And we were in combat the next day.
Tell us that event of the next day in November of 1944, your recollection of that whole event.
Oh, the day that I was captured?
Yes.
Yes. Well, we started out with a company. We were operating short, probably 160, 150 instead of the 240. And we were marching out looking for Germans, trying to clear out areas. And all of a sudden we came to an opening, and the way I remember it, there was a little hill beyond. There were 2 machine guns, German machine guns nests, and they had an armored vehicle that kind of pinned us down with cannon fire. We all spread out and, found places behind trees, wherever we could find, a safe place. And for the next 5 hours, we fought back and forth from our own, the little positions we were there. For 5 hours, battled back and forth, and our troops were decimated. We lost, I would say, 90% of our men, and the rest of us were wounded. It was a horrible day. I lost a lot of good friends.
When you were wounded, where were you wounded?
I was wounded in the hand. It was nothing big.
Well, I'm not sure how about classify being shot in the hand as nothing big, but you, how did you actually get captured?
Well, like I said, we fought back and forth for about 5 hours, and everyone was dying. Everyone was dying around us. I saw things that I'll never forget. My platoon sergeant was about 10 feet behind me. That vehicle that I said had the can on it, a shot hit a tree behind me, and it came down and spiked my sergeant. I had a Signal Corps buddy of mine about 6 feet away from me. We were both behind trees, but apparently he had gotten shot when I didn't notice it, and he was in a kind of comatose. He was moaning, and he didn't answer stuff that I said to him. And by the time the day ended, he was dead too. I saw my company commander. This was an outfit that was started in Lowell, Mass. I forgot the company. But anyway, the commander was a guy from Lowell. He was a first lieutenant, and he was right out in the middle of a directing fire. And I looked over one time, I saw a bandage around his neck with blood on it. And then the next time I looked, about 15 minutes later, he was on the ground dead. Anyway, after the 5 hours, a corporal who was the only non-com or regular officer alive said, "Everyone pull back," and everyone was about 12 people. We fell back into a ditch about 100 yards away from the combat zone. And then they opened up with fire, just raking every inch of that whole area. And then the next thing we knew, we saw 2 German soldiers looking down at us with automatic weapons. And I figured at that time we're gone. But they said, "Kamerad," and the corporal said, "Kamerad," and that was how we were captured. Yeah.
So officially on that day you were a POW. So take us from the time you were captured in the events that took place as you went to POW camp. And
oh, all right. Well, a lot of it is, mixed up in my mind, but I'll tell you as well as I can. Well, we started, after they took us into the area, the combat area, we tried to find some American kids that were still alive, and we found a couple. A lot of them were so badly wounded that the Germans wouldn't let us take them because it was imminent. The death was imminent. So anyway, once that, and then the Americans started firing cannons from there, and artillery came in. So we had to move out. So we hustled away, and we walked about 15 miles that night, and we finally ended up at a French farm. And the 11 or 12 of us were put in the basement, and we stayed there that night. The next day, a truck came, and they took us further and further away from the front lines to prevent our, trying to escape. And then we were in a prison camp, that's all. They put us in a prison camp. They put us on. It worked slowly, very slowly, how we were pulled away from the combat lines and into the area furthest away from the Germans, the Americans, I should say. And that happened with train rides, which was an experience in itself.
Tell us about the train. Tell us about the train ride.
Oh yeah, okay. Now we were put on these box cars, probably 70 of us on it, jammed on. It was very, very cold. This was right after, it was the beginning of December, very cold. And we had no water, but we just maybe a couple of pieces of bread. And we made several legs on this journey until we finally got to our main prison camp. And the first one wasn't too bad because we had a little bit of food. But the second leg, it was bad because the Americans and the British started bombing these trains. They didn't know they were prisoner of war trains. And a few guys got killed then, and it was cold. Everyone had frozen feet. Some of them were, later on, they had to amputate their toes. This came later on after we got to hospital areas. It was a nightmarish few days in the trains, it was.
And then you wound up in a stalag.
Yeah, we were, excuse me, I think the stalag I was sent to was Stalag 4C, and it was right on the Czechoslovakian border with France. We were captured in the Alsace-Lorraine area of France.
And how long were you in this stalag?
I was a prisoner for 6 months.
Ken, during this time, did you keep a diary?
Yeah.
Because I have a copy of this diary was given to you, the book was given to you by the Red Cross.
The Red Cross sent us different things like that, and I grabbed that, and I decided after I was a prisoner a couple of months, I decided I'll just keep a record of what I've done, and it turned into a diary, yeah.
And some of the events during just your experience that come to mind in these stalags?
Oh, well, there were a lot of things that happened. We weren't brutalized at any time, except one time some German officers came to see if we were doing what we're supposed to be doing. They were losing the war, and they were not in a good mood. Because they started, one officer had a big cane, he started beating a couple of our guys. Another officer took a gun and started firing in our direction. I don't know if he had ammunition there or not, but the gun was going off and no one got hit. But he beat us up pretty bad. They beat us up pretty bad. They were losing the war and they wanted to take it out on someone, that's all.
The food situation and everything.
Food situation was always bad. We just barely got enough to eat. And, you know, it was a piece of bread and this coffee. That was our meal most of the time. Once in a while, we'd get a soup. The things that really saved us were the Red Cross parcels. When we got those, we'd get wonderful things, and they were all the things we dreamt about from, you know, that we were going to eat when we got home. And that probably saved a lot of lives. Now, I lost probably 1/3 of my body weight while I was a prisoner. Some of them were absolutely like skeletons. It was ridiculous.
They moved you from that stalag to another stalag later on?
Yeah, we went, yeah, they got a group of us. That's another story. There were about 40 of us in the stalag we were in. No, maybe more than that. I get mixed up in my stories. There were about 100 of us, but they took about 40 of us, and they moved us over into Czechoslovakia. And that was a nice place. It was a nice, when I say nice, relatively speaking. We had bunks, although they were loaded with lice and bed bugs. And we worked in a factory, and it was very nice. And we worked under Czechoslovakian foreman. And one day I asked one, "What are we making?" And the guy, the Czechoslovakian man said, "You're making hand grenades." So, you know, we weren't supposed to be doing stuff like that, but we couldn't out and out say, "We're not going to do this anymore." The German guards were right there, and some of them were crazy enough to just shoot us if we did anything like that. So we decided we're going to, you know, do something to stop this. So I was operating at a punch press. I'd put a piece of metal in, but not all the way in, bring the punch press down, and it would lock. So it would take them about a half hour to clean it out and everything. And the other guys did the same kinds of things. So after a while, you know, we weren't supposed to be doing that. the Germans finally said, okay, just forget it. And after that, we were put out in the woods, chopping trees down, whatever dirty work they could find for us to do.
And you were in survival mode. You just wanted to
Oh,
survive.
yeah, we wanted to stay alive, yes, yeah. There were times when we thought they were going to kill us, but they didn't. You know, they'd wave their guns at us, line us up against a wall, and it was just scare tactics. They, you know.
Okay, I'm going to mention a story you had said about two prisoners that they took away.
Oh, yeah, that's a miracle that still boggles my mind. We had two Jewish boys in our group, and about 4 months into our being prisoners, the guards came and took them away. And, you know, we all thought to ourselves, oh, geez, these guys are going to be killed. So anyway, that ended. The war ended. I came home. I had the whole summer of 1945 as a furlough, so I was home. And I decided I'm going to go up to see some friends in Detroit, Michigan. So I hitchhiked all the way. Everything was great. And I got there the day before VJ Day. Well, my friends and I, the next day, went into Cadillac Square, and there were, I don't know, a few 100,000 people there, because VJ Day happened that day. Now, I got to the corner of a street, and all of a sudden, one of those guys that was taken away, the Jewish guys, came, and I said, oh my God, I thought you were dead. We hugged and kissed, you know. It was a miracle. If I had been there 2 seconds earlier or later, I would have missed him. So
that is.
It boggles my mind, I'm telling you. But I was so glad to see those. I didn't see the other one, but he was okay too.
So from that stalag, you went to one more.
Yes. Oh, the last stalag? No, the only move we made was the move into Czechoslovakia. Okay. That was when we were working, and that's where we were when the war ended.
Okay. Tell us about, now you've been in the prison of war how many months?
It was almost 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah.
And the Germans decided to, this is May of 1945.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the war was coming to that within days.
Yeah.
So they were marching you somewhere, and just share with us what.
Well, yeah, what happened that day, VJ Day, was VJ Day for the Americans. The Russians still hadn't stopped.
VE Day.
Oh, VE, I'm sorry, VJ. Yeah, the Russians hadn't stopped fighting. So the Germans that morning rounded up all the American, British, French, and Canadian soldiers, and we were in a collected in a big area. There must have been about maybe 1,000, you know, POWs there, and the guards pointed in a certain direction, said, "The Americans are that way," and then they all took off. I think they were afraid there would be repercussions for stuff that happened while we were in prison. So anyway, the whole, whatever number, 1,000, started taking off in that direction. And within a few hours, everything had broken up, and I was in a group with 4 other guys. And we walked until maybe 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and we were wiped out. Our legs were swollen. I mean, we were hungry and everything. So we decided there was a lawn. It was relatively warm. So we just laid down on the lawn and we were going to sleep. We were going to nap, whatever. And just at that moment, a truck came by. It was an open truck. It was driven by French. There were 2 or 3 French people on it. There was even a Turkish soldier from Cyprus. And there were a few other Allied soldiers on there. And I think what they were looking for was passage through the American lines. The French guys wanted to go right into France, you know, which didn't happen. But anyway, they wanted American guys to take them to the Americans. They thought it'd be easier for them. Well, there were 3 seats in the front, and I hopped right in the front one, and the other guys got in the back of it. And we drove at that, and we went through some great crazy stuff. At that point, the Russians had stopped fighting, and there were columns of them. We ran into it, going. I think they were trying to get to the Elbe River before the Americans, but it was like a parade. The Czechoslovakians were waving Czechoslovakians and not French, and Russian flags, and our little convoy truck joined the convoy, and we went along with them. And on that trip, a lot of things happened. It turned into night. We started going through one of the big cities in Czechoslovakia, and we got out, and we saw Czechoslovakians shooting Czechoslovakian people who had played footsies with the Germans.
You actually saw this?
We saw that. It was we saw 2 of them killed, and we saw them that were dead on the ground, you know. Apparently they had
collaborated.
That's it. Collaborated with the Germans. And so we just kept going, and let's see. Oh, it was night. I think it was about 11 o'clock at night. Finally, we came to an area, and there were 5 soldiers, 5 American soldiers, and we started running towards them, and they brought their guns around, and we said, "We're Americans. We're Americans." So after everything, I probably have forgotten a lot of things, you know, but I just hugged the guys. They said, "What are you doing?" You know. But we saw the Americans. There was a major, a sergeant, and 2 privates. Mm-hmm. The major said, "Listen, we'll get some food for you." You know, it was an area where there was a little hotel. I don't know what. Mm-hmm. He wanted to put us up there because we weren't going to be picked up until 6 o'clock in the morning when the guard changed. But we were so excited. We just went out there.
Your war was over, essentially.
Oh, yeah, it was over. It was over.
But you had stopped at a farmhouse looking for food, you mentioned.
Oh, that was, yeah. In the beginning of that day, we were getting hungry. There were just the 5 of us. So I said, I'll go out to the house and see if I can get something to eat. So I knocked on the door, and this woman came, and she was crying. And I said, "What's the matter?" And she said her son the young son had picked up a hand grenade because everything was all over the place, you know. It went off and it killed him, and very sad. But she gave us food. It was very sad. I mean, I didn't think anything of it because everything was in bedlam anyway.
Yeah. Just part of the madness that you were.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're now a free man.
Ooh, yeah, I've got to have some water.
and you are now on your way back to the United States. So get us from that point to the time you get.
Okay, let's see. Well, we spent about 3 weeks in various hospitals. One was in France. And then we were given tickets and money, and they just let us go in France and said, you have to go to this particular camp, which was going to be an embarkation area to the States. Well, it just so happened I got into Paris, and it was Memorial Day, and it was all kinds of exciting parades and everything going on. And but I was anxious to get to the camp. I thought that if I got there 2 days late, I could have stayed in Paris for a week. It would have been something. Well, anyway, I ended up at the area where we were going to sail from. I don't know if
You embarked and came to, where did you land after you left?
We landed in Boston.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, yeah, it was great. I got off. We got off the boat, and we were going to wait for other transportation to take us to Fort Devens. I guess at that point,
Ken, did your mother and father and family know that you were alive?
well, that's what I was going to tell you. They didn't find out I was a prisoner of war until about 4 days before the war ended. And when I got home, you know, that was about 3 weeks after that, I guess. We were in Boston. I called the house right away, and my mother was crying. She couldn't talk. And we went to Fort Devens. We were given passes for a few days, and I got home, and you know, it was wonderful. I mean, all the pain and everything we felt was just washed away when I walked into my house. And saw my parents.
To continue the story,
Okay,
you're discharged in 1945.
Yeah.
You marry Alice, and I have a son, Peter,
Yeah.
and a daughter, Gail.
Right.
You were married for 25 years. You lost your wife,
Yeah.
Gail, and then a number of years ago, you lost your son.
Yeah.
You had remarried to Marguerite, and you married to her for 25 years until she passed away.
Yeah, yeah.
During this time, you started a cleaning and tailoring shop, and I will say this briefly because I didn't know until we got to this that the reason you went to tailoring and cleaning is because when you were in high school, you worked for my dad.
That's right.
Yeah, this is until this very moment, I didn't know that.
That's like meeting that guy in Detroit. The story about meeting him at.
That is so incredible to me.
Yeah, yeah.
But I want to close here. Right? So you started this Kazanjian
Cleaners and Tailors,
and you were there for 47 years,
Yeah.
and now you're in happy retirement.
Yes.
You are a true hero, my hero, and here is some of the medals you get. Could you briefly tell us, point to and tell us what they are?
Well, this one is for something I did that I don't know. It was the day of the that we were captured. Something happened, and someone gave me that. They gave me this. I had a small wound. That's the Purple Heart. This is the POW medal, and these are just.
But the top one?
Oh, that's the one that I'm most proudest of. That's the Combat Infantry Badge. That's the one. The other.
It's a true soldier, true.
Oh.
Ken, we're going to have to close here.
Oh, sure.
What I'd like you to do is take a moment and dedicate this very fascinating story, your life story, your veteran story, to anybody you so choose.
Well, growing up, I had a very close friend, Paul Marsubian, and he was an idealist. And I remember when we were talking about going to the service, he wanted to be in the infantry, but they put him in another branch of the service, and I know he regretted that. But the thing is, we were both in the Alsace-Lorraine area at just about the same time. He was sleeping in a barn. This is the story we learned. He was sleeping in a barn, and the Germans had booby-trapped it. It blew up, and he died. And I don't think I was more than 25 miles away from him at that time. We were both in the Alsace-Lorraine area. So that's it. And I'd like to dedicate this thing, the book, to him.
To Private Paul Marsubian.
Paul S. Marsubian, yeah.
Which the local post here in Watertown.
Yes, Paul S. Marsubian, AmVets Post 41, right.
I want to thank you for your time, your service, and it has been it's been an honor and a privilege to talk with you, Mr. Kazanjian. And thank you for watching A Veteran Story.